I'm back with a new setup. I am really passionate about what I have today. I'm going to be talking about words, all about words, okay? They're much more complicated than you think. They mean far more than the word describes. The word compresses the data to the point where you lose all meaning. If you don't know what I'm talking about, I'm going to explain it, okay? Let me just start with one thing. When I say tree, what do you think of? When I say tree, the thing that grows outside, a tree. No. A tree is an entire system. It's an entire relationship. And dare I say, it is a part of you. You see, this is your lungs and this is your veins and arteries that move the oxygenated blood around and return it. Okay, and this is a tree and this is a tree's roots. Guess what happens? You breathe out carbon dioxide. Plant takes that, turns it into oxygen. You use oxygen, turn it back into carbon dioxide. They use that. Okay, you see what I'm saying? You see how it not only looks like our lungs physically, but also does the other half of what our lungs do. Where do our lungs stop and the tree begins? By calling it a tree, you are inherently missing what it actually is. Now that you know the tree is a part of you, you literally couldn't live without it. How can you argue a tree is less a part of you than your arm when you couldn't live without the trees, but you could sure live without your arm? Okay, the tree is a part of you. And now that you know the tree is a part of you and the word is just the separation illusion, the illusion of separation. Sorry, it's a little backwards. I do that a little bit. But anyways, the tree is the other half of your lungs. So then what are the pollinators? The pollinators are needed for plants to grow. That's why people yell about save the bees. Well, guess what? If the trees need the pollinators, so do you. They're part of your system too. Everything is a part of one thing. Nothing is actually separate, and words do this big, huge confusion. They make everything seem like separate thing. It's all thing, and then they get, okay, I have so much to say. Like I said, this topic really gets me. It gets me going. I just feel like people approach words like they categorize reality and they help us understand it. I don't think they help us understand anything. I really don't. I think in their simplification, they hide more than they show. And we have like this tendency to want to make things simpler and more understandable because our brains are not as complex as the world we live in. Okay? Till we can understand words, we cannot break down the systems that keep us in a state of illusions. You continue to fall for lies until you understand what words actually are. That's why it's important. And I don't want you to believe lies, not just for my sake, but for your own. Because people will destroy your self-esteem with their own narrative if you let them and if you don't understand what words actually are. So anyways, let's do it. Let's talk. Okay, I'm so excited. Can you tell? Words are not effective. And they don't actually mean anything. And if you're saying words are like their purpose is meaning, just trust me. Just follow me, okay? I'm going to explain it. Words are like these little things that make you feel like you know whatever you just referenced. Think about it. Love, tree, a friend. All of those terms don't encompass what the thing actually is. They put it in a category for your understanding, which we usually deem useful. But my point is that so much information is lost in that compression that it actually loses more information than it helps. And I'm going to prove my point. And I'm also, I know you're probably thinking, are you saying we should just not talk? We should just not use words? No, it's actually not what I'm saying. I'm saying in order to use words correctly, we must know what they are. We think of words with things with set definitions, but it turns out words are just comparisons to other words. For example, I can say a stump is a chair, and that means something to you. But if I say a chair is a chair, that doesn't mean anything to you because there's no comparison. You could say a chair is something that you sit on, but we all know plenty of things that you can sit on that aren't a chair. Okay? Words without contrast collapse. Now, let's get into how they use words to make you feel like positive things are negative. Yes, they use words to make you feel like positive things are negative. This is also why whenever people argue semantics, they never get anywhere. If you ever see people asking these questions, what is a woman? What is a democracy? What is this? What is that? Just know that whatever that debate is, it's not going to get to any conclusion because words themselves aren't concrete things. They're a perception, a snapshot of a comparison. There's a way of communication that's not very dependent on words, and animals use it. It's frequency, it's tone, it's duration, it's rhythm. Now, when we start talking about rhythms and frequency, it becomes obvious we're talking about math. It becomes obvious we're talking about the language of the actual universe and not these words that everybody insists are so important. I say this, we may have used complex language to solve cancer, but how many cases of cancer did we cause with the same complex vocabulary? Its benefits are far outweighing its costs because it is in the wrong hands. And humans simply are not very smart. I don't know why we think that we're smart. We are not. We use words every day. People do not even think about what they are. I'm going to get into what they are. Trust me, I haven't even peeled back the top layer yet. This is the very tippy top of the iceberg of what words actually are and what they're actually meant to do. How are they meaningful and how are they helpful if a person can say a sentence and if 100 people looked at it, they might interpret it 100 different ways? In fact, they probably would interpret it 100 different ways. See, this is the problem with words. Words can reframe something into something else entirely. Let's say you're a very passionate child. You have a lot of passion and a lot of vigor, and you have a lot of questions. People may label you annoying. They may label you angry. They may label you upset. When in reality, the labels they should be giving you is someone that cares for justice, a just, ethical person, a passionate person, an empathetic person, a caring person. But no, because they've seen what they deem as angry, now they're going to put you in a box of mad. Now, why does that matter? Why does it matter? Because we know we should suppress our anger. We know we should suppress our anger. What you're feeling when you're feeling passion isn't anger. And what do I mean when I say we should suppress our anger? I mean, just because you're feeling mad doesn't mean you should go spew out a venomous stream onto somebody. When you're passionate, you do need to spew out a stream. You see how mislabeling it can lead to the wrong action? We have a bunch of adults walking around feeling like they are passionate and they don't know what they care about simply because the qualities that would have given them the keys to who they really are and what they really loved was given a negative label at some point in their life, and they thought that wasn't a good quality and they shouldn't develop it. That's why we have problems. I can guarantee you a lot of our problems would be solved if we stopped labeling our rebellious children as bad. Who do you think leads revolutions? The rebels do. If they can use enough propaganda to make sure that you never raise a child that's rebellious, they've already done their job. They've already done their job. And after they've labeled them a rebel, now, guess what? Guess what? Do you know how people that are rebellious feel? They feel rejected from the mainstream. They feel like they have to resort to communities outside of the mainstream, which guess which ones are offered? Usually gangs. Okay, usually not good things. And when I say gangs, I'm using a broad term. A cult, a gang, they're all all the same thing to me. I'm not drawing lines between things that have the exact same goal. Okay? Just so you know when I use the word gang. They also use words to convince you that things that are very harmful are not harmful. Case in point, spanking. What is that word used for? It is used to take an action, which I don't even think that I can say. Let's think about it. How can I say this where it's not going to sound, it's still going to sound, I don't even know. Okay. Spanking is a term used to describe removing the covering from a no-no square of a person and striking them in that said square. Specifically, the reasoning for that is because it's a more sensitive area and it will hurt more. That is what the word spanking has come to describe. Now, when you do not that extreme of it and you do a version of it, you still call it the same thing. More room for ambiguity. Okay, so now we have a term that literally describes something horrible that people use when they're not talking about something horrible sometimes. So now the definition is even more watery. Like when somebody says, I spank my kids, you have no idea what end of the spectrum that could be on, right? Okay, it's done on purpose. It's done on purpose. It's the same way where instead of saying you hit someone, you might say you slapped them, because slap sounds less bad than hit. Are we getting it? They use the words for propaganda to make very violent things not sound super violent. Now, I think that you guys can clock some of these. Start looking for words, or if you know some, leave them in the comments that don't sound serious, but describe very horrible things. You'll end up finding a lot. Words are spells of perceptions. They use the word for spank to change your perception of how bad it is. Words are unavoidable witchcraft. A lot of people, when they hear the word witchcraft, they freak out. We're talking, again, I just told you how useless words are, so let me tell you what I mean when I say witchcraft. Words are spells. You spell words. It's literally right there in front of you what exactly you're doing, okay? The words you say and the words you speak shape the way you turn out. If you are nice to a plant, it grows faster. It's researched, it's proven. I'm not just saying whatever. Here's a video I did on it. It's in there. You can see how words affect things, okay? Witchcraft is simply perception manipulation, okay? It's perception manipulation. That is all witchcraft is. A person that wants to isolate you with witchcraft may send a thought form your way of, I'm annoying. When you think I'm annoying, you don't reach out to people. You isolate yourself. They could also send that same thought out to other people. Now other people think you're annoying because somebody has sent that out. Now that I've said that, just because you've thought it or somebody else thought it, that doesn't mean it is true. Start replacing negative words with their positive counterparts. Not only can you do that, but now you have clarity of thought. So you can see cause and effect. You can see the words that shaped their mind and had that outcome. You can see cause and effect right in front of you. You can see the cause and effects of labeling somebody negative things, making them insecure, and making them prove they are positive things. And if they do not prove they are positive things, instead of the negative things you're calling them, you reject them. That's what creates a narcissist. Every narcissist is created by exactly that pattern. Expectation and rejection. Earning love. Parents that make children earn love create narcissists. They create people that act. They create people that put on a facade because they know if they dropped it, they would not be loved. Okay, how do I say this? I truly feel like unpacking language is the first step in unpacking self-blame. And after you've unpacked self-blame, you can then see the structures that are causing the problems in your life. I'm telling you, the people of this world do not have issues of their own doing. The people of this world have issues that are the consequence of something that happened. There are causes and there are effects, and people are the living effects of the causes. The cause is not some personal vendetta against themselves to be unlikable. The cause are systems. And when we start using words correctly, the systems that are used to convince us we are things we are not and act out of our character become really a lot more obvious. I feel like once we unpack what really words are, we can not only see how they're used to manipulate us into not seeing our own positive qualities or not being able to comprehensively or logically dissect how to solve our problems. Okay, I guess every battery I own wants to die at once, but I do know that if you're still here, you would have had to have a thought during this. So please put it in the comments, because the same way the tree is not separate from my lungs, our minds, they're not so separate. The same way two cells in your body signal to each other and communicate, we can signal to each other and communicate. And if we want our body, our earth, everything to function properly, the cells got to communicate. Also, this is a pretty small channel. I just started it. And I do want to make some sort of a larger community, because I do think there are a lot of systems that hold people down, and I specifically think there's a lot of psyops that hold people down, and they're preventing us from evolving because we're not seeing reality, we're not seeing truth, and I think that we really do need like-minded individuals to come together, pool their expertise, and potentially figure out solutions to some problems. So my hope with starting this is actually that at some point there can be a community of us that maybe can actually do things and affect change. Obviously, not that many of you here now, so the best I can do is talk into the void for now. But if you want to leave a comment just for the algorithmic purposes of that, I would also really appreciate it. I really feel strongly that the personal blame we're kind of told to take is done to us intentionally, because when you blame yourself, you tend to spend your money trying to fix it instead of revoke people's powers that aren't doing their jobs. So I do think it's important to talk about, and I do think it leads into a much bigger issue. Also, I will throw this in here. I am autistic, and autistic people typically really don't like words. And if you know someone that's autistic and you've ever wondered why they don't like words, I don't know, I'm kind of curious, or maybe you're autistic and you can just tell me, like, is this a thing that just like us autistic people hate words? Because I truly feel I could go nonverbal some days and not care too much. It's like, what am I even saying? What could I even say? You know, sometimes it just feels like words cannot accurately describe what I want. And I also think that no words can really describe you or me. I think that what we actually are isn't even speakable or sayable. I think that it is so large it can't even be encapsulated into words. So I challenge you, the next time yourself or somebody else assigns you a negative quality or a negative emotion, to break down what that could be if it was viewed through a positive lens. And if you viewed it through that positive lens, how would you utilize it differently? For example, if you are a really consistent communicator, you might be really good in jobs where children need advocates that are really consistent. There are all kinds of ways for you to utilize what you're good at. And everybody has strengths. And it's truly not something that you can ever run out of words to describe. The second you think that you've figured out all of the words that are you, you will find a million more, okay? And just because there isn't a word to describe something doesn't mean it's not real or it doesn't exist. Trust what you know about yourself. Trust what you feel inside, even if there aren't words to say it. All right, I'll see you guys next time.